Hola, buenos días. Mi español no es muy buenos. Is it right? Okay, so I'll speak in English today. My journey coming here to be with you started a couple of days ago, and I was at the airport at Gatwick near Londres, and I was talking with my friend, talking about what I might share with you today. And as I began to talk about it, I realized that the films that I often watch on the planes are the films like Coach Carter, like Freedom Writers, like Dangerous Minds. And honestly, they make me cry my eyes out. And I know it's real on the plane, because in a big cinema like this, you can get wowed by the big media and the loud sound. But when you're just on the plane, it's just that tiny screen. And if something real hits you, you know it's real. But as I was speaking with him, I actually began to well up and cry in the lounge. And I realized that actually it's because I get to be in that film today with you. That all the things I've cared about in those films, I actually get to do for real. And if you get nothing else from the journey that we go on over the next hour, I really want you to know that after 10 years of running businesses, selling companies, failing companies, sharing stages with prime ministers and presidents, it is sharing with you now that is more of a privilege than that for me, genuinely. It's been a couple of years since I've last been on a stage, and I'm extremely privileged to be here with you guys today. And what's more, to be here in Toledo, as I've learned over the last 2 days, seems to be a melting pot of peace, where people from different backgrounds, religions, and understandings of how the world works can actually get on together and share and cohabit in their lives. There's something intuitively that Toledo seems to know about humanity. But the last couple of years, I've been trying to unravel my own labels. Born in South Africa, grew up in England and Wales, a Christian, a businessman, understanding technology, likes to talk a lot. And I've begun to let go of these labels, trying to get to the bottom and ask, what is left if you do the work? If you ask, who am I? And you'd be willing to go in that journey, what is left? And then we can begin to think about, who are we? And you guys are in the business of trying to prepare the people that you care about, the young people that you care about, for a future. So who are they, who are we, and what are we preparing them for? And that is what I want to share and engage with and go on a journey with together today. The real question underneath all those labels that sometimes can separate and segregate is, what does it really mean to be human? What is that common denominator? And to do that, to be able to figure it out for the future, we need to go into the past. For the last 12 months, well, for the year before that, I traveled to 20 countries, taking on various projects, as I said, sharing stages with all sorts of people, going around the world in 30 days on one trip to listen to young people around the world, to ask them, what is it like to be them? What is it like to live in Tokyo, in Rio, in Reykjavik, in New Delhi, in Addis Ababa? What is it like to be you? What problems do you see? And what can you imagine? What kind of future can you imagine? What kind of, bless you, what kind of situation can you imagine that could be better in the future? Try to encourage and empower them in the context in which they live. But this year has been quite different. It's been still. Instead of running around the world, I've sat still and let the world do its thing and turn around. And I've been sitting in a 25-acre woodland, just me and a small hut and some friends that have come along to share the time. No internet, no power, no running water. I've had to depend on the locals. I've had to learn some skills myself. And needless to say, there's been a lot of fires and a lot of time to reflect on these broader questions when you get out of the busyness of the modern world. And one of the things I often think about is that time about 500,000 years ago where a Neanderthal was in his cave. And he's sitting there in his cave like this, and then he sees a massive lightning bolt go, and it hits a tree, and the tree turns into this massive red flower. And he comes near it, and he realizes that it's warm. And he thinks, ooh, this is good. And then he touches it and thinks, oh, it's not so good. Okay, and then he begins to engage with it and try to think about, what could this mean for me? Oh, it's warm and I'm cold. This is good. About 300,000 years ago, that's when we really learned how to harness the fire. And everything changed for us. We began to engage with our environment differently. Fire and our ability to communicate with each other is what took us from halfway down the food chain to the top of the food chain. In the last year, I've been experimenting with learning basic skills. I've only ever worked with the internet and with people, so I haven't learned any of the motor functions, really, that most of humanity would have learned in order to survive. When you look at what I made in the last year, and you look at the Lion Man that was carved 30,000 plus years ago, I think we can all make the judge of which one's better. So what does that say about us personal skills? Maybe there's not that much difference between us and who we were 30,000 years ago on an individual basis, but maybe the development is in the collective intelligence that helps society and culture to develop. If we are not at the top of the food chain because we're stronger or faster than the other animals in the food chain, what is it? What is that word that connects both the ability to harness fire, which has led to so many other developments, and the ability to converse and share stories and myth, engage in that collective understanding, to gather together, to hunt, to take on bigger animals? And the word is intelligence, intelligentsia. But it's such a difficult word. It's like fire. It's hard to put your hands on. Where can we find it? We have been told a story that it is static, that you can put a number on it, that the individual owns the intelligence. But I want to interrogate that. I want to question that today and go on a bit of a journey together, figuring out what that means. If we look at Greco's painting of Toledo, in order to discuss, we need to have language. If we talk about pintura, the noun, the paint, we're talking about the material, the substance. Okay, that doesn't tell us everything that we need to know about what it is to paint. Pintar? 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 Pintar. I'll get there in the end. Pintar tells us something else about the process of painting. How do we apply those materials in a way that makes Greco's work famous, well-known, appreciated, beautiful? If we just had the word pintura, it wouldn't unlock the ability to examine the process, to teach and learn about it well. It would stay as a mystical art. But then when we look at our vocabulary, where is the verb for intelligence? To intelligence. Where is that word? And if we don't have that word, then what does that mean for how we think about what it is? That some have it and some don't have it. That it's a mystical thing. That you can put people in boxes because it's clear to see the trajectory that we're on. I think this is one of the biggest crimes in modern day society. And in fact, it has been the root of propaganda to perpetrate many crimes on people around the world, to put them in a box and say that where they have come from means that they cannot go to somewhere better. For me, to truly understand the nature of intelligence, we have to understand the concept of emergence. So if we talk about this river, who owns the river? Does the water own the river? Does the land own the river? The only way to know is if you take the land away, do you still have a river? If you take the water away, do you still have a river? I would say no. I would say the river emerges as a product of the relationship between the land and the water. Together, symbiotically, this thing we call the river emerges based on so many factors. They work together to create this. This is how I feel intelligence emerges, not from inside us, but from a symbiotic relationship between us, the system, and our environment. This automatically gives you so much more to play with. If you're trying to improve the emergence of intelligence, you can think about the system, or you can think about how to change the environment to increase the flow of intelligence the emergence of intelligence in that situation. So intelligence is a relational, dynamic process by which life happens. But that's all very good and well. But what does that mean in practice? Subtly, we've been screwing ourselves, lacking some basic vocabulary that helps us to examine the most primary and basic acts of life. I think this can offer transformation opportunities if we can get our heads around it together. So as I said, for 10 years I ran companies, I traveled the world, I've done lots of different projects, I've seen lots of different things. But I wanted to take time out to see what would happen to my mind, to my ability to create if I change my environment. What happens if I get out of the modern social experiment of society and immerse myself in the wisdom of ecology, to try and see what those teachers of old can share with me and see what we create together. I'd had enough of the empirical knowledge, and I wanted to gain more of a personal, ontological experience. And so I went to the woods. 5 minutes, I'm meant to be able to make an owl like that. And after 1 hour, I had made something that maybe looks like something quite different. I'll leave that up to your esteemed judgment. But it's been an interesting learning journey for me to realize lack of skill that I didn't even know I was avoiding. I was just sticking to the paths that I knew worked. When I was 21 and I had sold a company, it was great, I could do anything. But now I'm 31, I'm sure some of you will know what I mean. It's embarrassing to go back to the drawing board. It's embarrassing to admit that there are some pathways that you really have very little knowledge in whatsoever. One of the challenges is about our mindset. And I'm sure many of you have been aware of Carol Dweck's work on the growth mindset. The idea that no isn't good enough, but our no is the best answer we can afford ourselves. We need to give this to ourselves before we can give it to the people that we work with. And when I coach leaders of businesses and artists and creatives in the woods, and I walk with them and we talk, I never think about their organization. I just think about them as the individual. What journey can we go on together? And that's what I want to ask you guys to think about today. Don't automatically take this to your students and the classroom. Think about it right here and right now. What does this mean for you? Can you give yourself permission to try again? This is this week. I've been sweating on this hut all year. I've been building it. I cut the trees down. I cut the trees. I put them on. I've been learning and being terrible at the job all year. And we tried to move it this week with a tractor, and it failed. Okay? I don't know what comes next. I don't know if we'll get there, but I'm certainly starting by trying to give myself permission, not to say that we can't do it, but that maybe it's not yet, and we can try again when I get back from Toledo. When I started this, I said that it seems that Toledo knows something intuitive about what it is to all be together, to be a collective, despite our labels and differences in how we see the world. And for me, as I've traveled the world, I've done these projects, but one of the things I've continued to do is to try to learn to dance. As you can tell today, I don't have a second language in words. But for the last 5 or 6 years, I've really been enjoying learning dance to partner dance, but not just as an activity, but trying to think of it as a language, think of it as a mode for communication, and to try and understand that. And we're going to go into that today, but to begin with, I want to show you some of the lessons. This was the first time I broke out of my comfort zone and danced in public. Surprisingly, no one cared. You know, I think sometimes we get stuck in our own mind that, oh no, it's going to be a big deal. No one cared. They didn't even look. I don't know if you saw it in the video, but everyone's just like, they're too busy to think about you, okay? The next time I was lucky enough to be in Cuba and I was trying to learn to salsa. I was terrible at it, but we did find this amazing band on the beach. It was my lucky day. Guatemala. I learned something quite different that day. And this is a slightly different part of the journey. This was a little bit more about self-knowledge, because a bit like a singer-songwriter can often hide behind their guitar. As a male, as a lead dancer, two separate things, but in my culture, the same thing. You hide behind the girl. She's the beautiful one. But now to dance on my own, I'm not beautiful, but you'll see, I tried.
I can't feel my face when I'm with you, but I love it, but I love it. Oh, I can't feel my face when I'm with you, yeah, but I love it, but I love it. And I know she'll be the death of me, at least we'll both know. And she'll always get the best of me, the worst is yet to come. All the misery was necessary while we're deep in love, 'cause I know all things.
So that was good fun. Thank you. Thank you. That was a lot of fun. It was in Canada. And I thought, how could I stay in such a hotel and not take advantage? We're dancing tonight. This was like midnight. Everybody's asleep, and then we crawled out and just went and danced around. Okay, so it's great fun. It was great fun. I had an incredible experience. But just something that I can't miss is that not everything went well. We had a little bit of an issue. We've had a savage split. And this, to finish, this is the last bit, I promise. Okay. Thankfully, that was just a bad dream. I'm much better physique in real life, I promise you. So a brief interlude. But there's true, something in dance, honestly, intuitively, I know it's real. I know it's true. I know somehow we're designed to do stuff like that. Maybe in different ways, different outlets. But for me, that's what brings me alive in certain moments of inspiration. But what the hell does dance have to do with intelligence? And this is a question I'm asking myself. You know, I don't have it all sewed up and perfect. That's why we're going to go on a journey together today. But there is this. People have begun to do research. You may have seen this TED video, beginning to look at the neural mapping of people's brains when they get involved. Well, firstly, when they listen to music, you can see that the brain just lights up. Something really interesting happens, more than just interest, but actually beginning to change the relationships in the brain. The bridge between the left and right hemisphere of the brain strengthens. And this happens especially when people are playing music. So when you think about intelligence, when you think about your ability to engage effectively with the environment, we might be teaching subjects and disciplines, but how is that information getting arranged? We're finding there's something affective that happens when we do some of these more non-sciencey kind of disciplines. Thankfully, people have, much cleverer than me, have begun to look for the neural basis of human dance, to think about how moving our muscles actually informs the maps in our brain, changes our ability to respond. The Latin for intelligence comes from intelligere, to choose between. If we don't have options in our mind, we can't exhibit any kind of differential behavior. They get into it quite seriously, and we won't do that today. But if we look at the bottom, it says, indeed, we observed that greater variety and greater number of anterior cerebellar activations during the most unfamiliar condition. The more the pattern was familiar to the participant, the less they actually had to engage their mind, the less value they actually found in the activity. And in a case study with older people, actually in Surrey, where I live half the time when I'm not in the woods, they found that through creative ideas, movement, and music, participants often forgot what they cannot do and move more freely, reminisce, and remember all the words of the songs and have fun. But they forget what they cannot do. They forget the box that they have sold themselves or others have sold to them because they engage in what I would call a state of flow, a state where your whole being is so deeply engaged in the present moment that there is no time for self-consciousness. We get into the moment and we get to flourish and in that moment be our true selves. The year before last, I spent living in San Francisco learning about technology, learning about self-driving cars and artificial intelligence. I was trying to sell the company that I was running at that time to a partner who could scale it much further than I could. And I went to a place called South Bay Fusion. And in this dance studio, I learned a style of dancing called blues fusion. It's a switch dancing style where there is no defined lead and follow. You approach the dance as a conversation. As I would approach to talk with you, we don't say, okay, well, listen, I'm going to ask all the questions and you're going to give me all the answers. We just begin. There is no preparation. There is no introduction. We just begin. And sometimes it works very, very well. And sometimes there's an awkward silence. Or sometimes somebody rabbits on and on and on and on. Sometimes somebody doesn't want to talk at all. But isn't that the beauty of conversation? That there is no control. That we allow whatever is to emerge between us. And that is where the relationship is found. But why? Why? Why are you talking about dance? I'm a teacher, god damn it. If we look at this chart, what we can see is that crystallized intelligence, the impression on the brain of past experiences seen in verbal ability, really doesn't decrease throughout the course of our lifetime. It stays fairly flat. If we can acquire this experience and this knowledge, then we're able to talk the talk. We're able to carry on discussing the things we've learned in the past, and we can survive. But the fluid intelligence, seen in the inductive reasoning, the ability to actually engage with the present moment, to take in the stimulus, to process it, and to create some kind of novel expression on the basis of the new information found, this dies a death, literally, after about the age of 40. Who's over 40 in the room? I see a lot of people not telling the truth in here. I'm not there yet, but I'm feeling it. We think about the fitness of our bodies, but do we think about the fitness of our minds in later life? Do we think about what that means for us, what it means lifelong learning? How can we keep the muscle of the mind continuing to pump so that we maintain our fitness for longer? But why? Yeah, of course we want to be smarter for longer, whatever. But why does that matter now more than ever? It's because of the great unknown. This world, I don't know about you, but it feels like it's getting faster and faster and faster, and the rate of change is developing more and more every single day. I've literally stopped doing a normal job just so that I can try and think about the change that's occurring, and I still can't keep up. So I dread to think what it's like for you guys. But the only way to truly engage with novel and unknown situations is to make sure that our mind is fit, that we're continuing to practice what intelligence really is. Okay, and that's what I think we need to be thinking about in terms of preparing our students for the future. Part of it is narrative and part of it is exercise. Being honest about the fact that the future is more unknown than ever and most likely is only going to increase and increase. That this isn't a source of stress or anxiety, but this is a source of great adventure. But we need to start preparing them for this fact now. We need to let them know that lifelong learning has to continue if they want to keep up with the way the world goes. piece of advice I got that's a very practical piece, but I think, again, more relevant than ever with where we're at with automation, self-driving cars, and machine intelligence, is if you work yourself out of a job, you'll never be without a job. It's easy for me to say from an entrepreneurial, internet kind of background, but I think philosophically there's something here for us. We have to think about, are we trying to hold on to the tasks that we signed up for in the beginning? Or can we see our role above the tasks? When somebody better comes along, or a machine comes along that can do the thing we used to think of as our job better than we can, are we willing to admit that and actually embrace it by moving further up, by moving away from the tasks, but maybe developing the job? When I've grown companies, I've had companies, not huge, but like 20 employees, the only way I've managed to do that is by continuing to let the jobs go that I used to do. I don't lose my position, I just lose the job that I signed up for in the first place. Okay, so there comes a point where I'm talking about ontological experience. We're talking about the value of dance, yet we're all still sitting here, listening to me talk, with your headphones on, typing away. So, I have never done this before with a big group, okay, but we're about to try something, and I hope you'll go with me on it. In its essence, dancing, partner dancing, is about listening to a story outside of ourselves first, then thinking about what's in front of us, and then finding some motor sensory response to all of that stimulus that is in the room. Okay? And I think that it's the best answer I have in a world that's asking, what the hell do we do to actually engage with the future? I think this is the best stab I've got right now. In a minute, we're going to turn to our neighbors. No one has to stand up, no one has to touch anybody else, okay? But what I want is to try and think about this connection. First and foremost, it is how do we relate with the stuff around us? Do we have our plan that's concocted in our mind from years ago, and we walk in and we know the steps, there's salsa 1, 2, salsa 1, 2, or do we stop and observe and listen, refresh our minds with the new information that's available in the room that we're sitting in, okay? So what I'm going to ask you to do in a second, maybe Ollie can come up here. Come on, Ollie, give him a round of applause. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. He doesn't know about this. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn to sit with the person next to us. If you're on the end of a row, turn around and try and sit with somebody that's on the end of the row behind you. And we're just going to put 2 fingers up, 1 finger each. Okay? Decide between you. In fact, turn now. Find a partner right now. That's the best thing to do. I'll give you 10 seconds. Well, you can move around, go find someone. You can do it at distance as well. If you catch someone's eye from across the room, you could do it with anyone, anywhere. In fact, I hadn't thought of that. That's great. Go on, sir. Oh, yes. So the first thing is we're going to listen to the music. We're going to take a couple of bars to tune into each other, look at each other in the eyes. And then we're going to start mirroring each other's actions. There will be a leader and a follower, okay? So, in your pairs, choose who will begin being the lead and who will be the follow. You got 5 seconds. You don't need to know. Okay, it shouldn't take you that long. You should be organized. Now, whoever said they were going to be the leader is actually going to be the follower, and it's going to be the opposite of what you said. So the original follower is now the leader. Put your hands up. If there's 2 hands up in your pair, you've got something wrong. So we're going to play some music, and then the leader is going to do something with their finger. That sounded bad. But basically, I'm not going to prescribe the pattern. I'm not going to prescribe the pattern, but think about what the goal is. The goal isn't to look cool or clever or do crazy things. It's to stay in connection with your partner and stay in connection with the music. If you lose your partner, I've clearly offended them. If you lose your partner, I thought you were going to come and join me on the stage. If you lose your partner, that's your fault as the lead, okay? This is acceptable. Just a little movement. If you lose connection, it's okay for a minute, but be aware of that and come back to that. Connection is the priority. Doing cool movements is not the priority. I'll give you a little example with Ollie, because he doesn't know what he's doing. Poor man. And then we'll do it all together, okay? Oh! Okay, you get the idea. Thank you, Ollie. Are you ready? See. Try it again. Are you ready? Thank you, that's much better. All right, I'm going to get a better view. Are you ready? Are you ready? You're doing it in 3. I like that, that's good. Who's the leader? Oh, man, I like it. Okay. Okay, let's begin. Take your time. Oh. Ooh. Ooh. Ah. Come on. You're the leader. Ooh. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. We're not finished. Don't think you got off. Was that okay though? It's not too crazy, is it? Okay, now we're going to switch roles. The original, you're going for the foot. Whoa, not yet, not yet, not yet. We need to warm up. Okay, the original person who wanted to lead, you now get your chance. 3, 2, 1. I don't see anything happening. I don't see anything. What, both ways? Did you swap lead and follow? Yeah. This is amazing. Oh. Oh. You are awesome. Okay, that is amazing. Give yourself a massive hand clap. I promise you, I've never done this with a big group before, so you're honestly blowing my mind. I'm seeing like crazy circles that I would never have thought of. I've seen like lassos going on in the air. Freaking loving it. Okay, this is the last one, so you better make it good. You have to find a new partner. Do that, and I'll tell you the rest. Ah, you're in the 3, Ménage à trois. Oh, it's French, damn it. A different partner, someone you haven't played with already. Okay, okay, okay. Oh, I like this. You can stand. Stand if you like. Go free. Take your shirt off if you want. Okay, shh, shh, shh. Silence! Silencio! What's the word? What's Spanish for silence? Silento. Silento! Silento! Are you listening? Perfecto. Now, there is no lead and no follow. Well, there is, but as in a conversation, you just, oh, I like, this is the action. I like that. Thank you, my friend. You just decide as you go. I recommend for this one that you begin with a little bouncy, because that gives a little chance to connect to the music. Don't rush it. Keep it there for a few bars, just to get the connection. And one of you will feel the inspiration, and you will begin to move. And the other will follow, hopefully. This will be awkward. There will be problems. We're not practiced at this. We don't have the experience. Oh, she's loving it. She's loving it. Some of you just can't stop yourselves. Now I've got you going. Okay. So this is the last one. Make it good. And listen, when it gets awkward and it goes wrong, Try again, okay? Get back to connection. We're going to play the whole song. We're going to play the whole song. So take your time, and this is the last go. Okay, you've been incredible. Are you ready? Come here, come here. Come on, just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just like this. Ah! This is freaking amazing. Oh, amazing. Oh, look at this. Any more time. I'm following her. Oh, 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 oh. We come. Oh, the party started. All right, everybody, everybody. Yeah. Okay, come here. Come here, one of you. Thank you. All right. Muito bonita.
Sí.
Okay, are you ready?
No, no estoy preparada.
Just start with a little bounce. Everyone, you're going to come in, aren't you? Go. You're leading. You're leading. You're leading. Oh! Oh! Oh, yeah! Oh! 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 Yes! Okay, thank you very much. Gracias. Big up. This is not a hand signal. Sit down. Should we just call it a day? I'm a bit... Woo, you're just amazing. How long do I have? Perfect, I need 5. Muchas gracias. Perfecto. Is anybody else sweating? I am sweating. Woo, I didn't account for this in my plan. That's because there was no plan. Okay, let's bring it back. Hopefully we've experienced something. I have. Give it up for her one more time. That was amazing. What's your name? Sarah.
Charo.
Sarah.
Charo.
Taro. Muchas gracias, Taro. Okay. Believe it or not, we were actually in some kind of a talk, okay? So what do humans do? I think we use our intelligence to creatively partner with our environment, to build tools and to share stories. I think this is fundamentally what sets us apart from the rest of the animal kingdom, from the rest of the people in our genus. This is what we should be proud to be, that we're bloody good at it. And that being good at it gives us a responsibility. To effectively engage in the future, we need to cultivate, practice, and celebrate the work of supporting intelligence in all its forms, in the environment, in our young people, in machines, to enable us to flourish. So, 3 takeaways. For you, not for your class, not for your students, for you. And you, and you, and you, and you. Experiment. Give yourself permission to experiment. Aún no. Experience. Do things like this, whatever it is for you. I'm not saying this is the right thing, but it works for me. To engage and practice relationship. To practically attune ourselves to a bigger story. To practically put the person in front of us first. These aren't big mythological ideas. These are just habits. And explore your humanity. Explore it. Think about what it is. Think about what it means. And if that's true for you, for us, then what does that mean for the future, for our people? And I want to finish how I began, which is to say that you honestly do, in my opinion, the work of kings and queens. Empires will come and they will fall. The systems we have will come and they will go. But this kind of work, equipping and empowering our young people with the power of inquiry to engage with the world around them, is bloody awesome. And I feel lucky to be here today. And thank you for your time. Some more learning if you want it. Gracias por tu tiempo.